full forward fiasco. Collingwood's near misses with finding a full forward. Let's get into it. So, as I'm recording this, it is 12:25, and I was in bed, and I had posted something on Facebook this morning about Logan McDonald. So Collingwood are in the hunt for Logan McDonald, and from Sydney, he's uncontracted. He's not a free agent or anything like that. So we do have to give up something for them. And everyone's like, "What are we going to give up? We have nothing." Our first round for this season went to Fremantle for Lockie Schultz, but the AFL might be introducing future trading for like a couple of years down the future. So we could potentially be giving up, for example, a 2025 first round and a 2026 first round for Logan McDonald. And is that, overs or something like that? We really can't say just yet because we don't know what's going to happen. But we're always in the market for a full forward. And you ask any Collingwood supporter, what's one area that we need to look into? And it's a key forward. And we've been burnt so many times. And we'll look at that in this video. But it's the draft. Why do we draft another midfielder? We should be drafting a forward. Why are we linked to 6 midfielders? We should be linked to a forward. And now we're linked to Logan McDonald, and I love Logan McDonald. If you go back all the way, I might find that video and post a link somewhere. I interviewed him before he went to the Swans, before he got picked up in the draft. Huge Collingwood fan. He is from Western Australia though, so he's not a Melbourne boy. But Collingwood think that they can lure him. And the commentators like around this, and John Ralph, Jay Clark, they think that Collingwood are in with a chance, and he could be commanding, about 200,000 more than what Sydney can offer him. But it's about what we can offer Sydney. And Sydney's salary cap is on the seams of bursting, or bursting at the seams. With Errol Goulden, Warner, all these sort of guys, Brody Grundy, all these sort of guys that they're sort of getting in there and trying to sign because they're such a good team. Logan McDonald could be on the outer because of that, and we could swoop in and finally land a key forward after years and years and decades of searching. So we're going to go in chronological order. We're going to start with the first guy, Tony Lockett. Now, you might know Tony Lockett as the guy that broke Coventry's 1299 goals record and is the goal kicking leader, and no one will ever surpass Tony Lockett. Did I say Sir Tony Lockett? He may as well be a Sir Tony Lockett, right? No one will ever pass Tony Lockett. Sydney Swans legend, but before he was at the Swannies, he was at St Kilda for a few years. Now, if you're old enough, you can cast your minds back to the early 1990s. I was born in 92. I can't cast my mind back at all. But if you were born before then, cast your mind back. The Pies offered St Kilda, who were just going broke, right? St Kilda have always been broke, but they were going really broke. They offered the Saints $1 million. Now, $1 million in 1990, I don't have an inflation calculator, but I can only assume that it's millions and millions more now, right? Actually, let me get an inflation calculator. 1 second. So thanks to this inflation calculator, $1 million in 1990 is worth about $2.5 million in 2023. So that's a lot of money to give to a club that is absolutely struggling. And at the time, Ken Sheldon, the coach of St Kilda, was sitting at a hotel pub with Alan McAllister, our president, and Travis Pay's St Kilda's president. And apparently, how the story sort of goes, and it's really hard to sort of tell, it was Ken Sheldon that said, look, if Tony Lockett goes, if the golden goose goes from the Saints, he's like, I'm going to get fired as well. So we need to sort of keep him. And then, as it so happens, at the end of 1994, Ken Sheldon leaves at 1993. In 1994, Tony Lockett goes to Sydney. So he ends up leaving the Saints anyway. But then I was sort of trolling through the internet, seeing what I can find. I came across this big footy thread that said apparently there was a rumor that a Collingwood board member stopped the Tony Lockett deal from happening. Something about, I think it's something about his son playing, or a board member's son playing for the team, and he thought that Lockett was going to overshadow him. But just think about that for a second. Think about in the 90s, early 90s, Collingwood getting Tony Lockett, and I dare say Lockett, still would have kicked all the goals that he kicked, right? That he did for Sydney, but he would have done it in a black and white jersey, and he would have just like the theatre of passing Coventry's 12.99 goals kicked in his career as a Collingwood player just would have been absolutely magical. But that's the first big name off the ranks that we didn't get. The second guy we're looking at is Jonathan Brown. Now, this happened in 2008. Eddie Maguire gave him a multi-million-dollar offer, and according to Jonathan Brown, the Pies were very, very, very close to signing him. And that's 2008. That's when Brisbane are going really poorly. At this time, Jonathan Brown is the captain of the Lions, so he would need to, deflect really, really a hard left turn, come back to Victoria where he's from, play with the Pies. He could have been a part of our 2010 Premiership, could have been a part of the 2011 Premiership, 2012. When you have a big key forward like a Brownie, you probably go on to win more than one Premiership. Just look at Brisbane Lions from 01, 02, and 03. Back when Jonathan Brown was a little bit younger, but still Brownie in the team. He could have had a second dynasty with Collingwood. He chose to stay at the Lions mainly for loyalty. Lee Matthews said it's always great to be a one-club player. Stay with loyalty. He was about to marry his wife, who was also from Queensland, so he had ties to Queensland. But so he knocked back that Collingwood offer. 2008, he'd go on to retire. I think it was about 2014 he retired. So we would have gotten, 6 or 7 more years of Jonathan Brown, which would have been Scott Pennebury just hitting Brownie up, Dale Thomas at Brownie's feet, Travis Cloke and Jonathan Brown. Oh my God, that would have been absolutely incredible. And Eddie nearly had him. Eddie nearly had him. Brendan Fevola, 2009. Now, I didn't know about this till I was doing a little bit of research for this. So, before he was a Lion, the first deal fell through when he was a Lion, right? He called Eddie Maguire straight away and said, I want to stay in Melbourne, get me to Collingwood. Get me to Collingwood, I want to play for the Pies. And Eddie Maguire is like, yep, let's do it. I want you to come to the Pies, we need a full forward, I want you to come to the Pies. They called Carlton, they're like, let's make this happen. Fev wants to stay in Melbourne, Fev wants to be at the Pies, we want him at the Pies, let's do a deal. And Carlton's like, nah. That's, mate, that is not going to happen. Hang up the phone now. There is no way we are sending you our best forward, right? We're dealing with the Lions right now. There's no way we are sending you Brendan Fevola to our arch rivals. Are you guys sticking their head? No. Bang, hangs up the phone. And then a couple of hours later, they do a deal with the Lions. Fev goes to the Lions. It's a bit, how's it going? And, that's what happens. So it goes. And we miss out on another key forward. That's not really our fault. Fev wanted to play with us. We wanted him. Carlton didn't want to do any sort of deals with their arch rivals, which is, you can see, that's fair enough. Fev would have been a premiership player, though. We would have been talking about Fev as a Collingwood premiership player in 2010, which would have been something else just, boom, absolutely entirely would have been. Could you imagine? That would have been insane. That would have been incredible. Now, the one that I really like and the one that I really want to happen was Nick Riewoldt in 2013. And this is another one with Eddie. Like, this is what happened when Eddie was at the helm. He was just making these big plays for these big players and trying to get them across. Now, Eddie Maguire, so St Kilda are not going well at all during this time after, 2009, 2010, those sort of years. They're not going well at all, going absolutely terribly. Eddie calls Nick Riewoldt up. He says, hey, man, come over to my house. Let's have a beer. We're going to talk about, life after football, the media, what you can sort of get into and stuff like that. Nick Riewoldt goes over to Eddie's house and Eddie's like, psych, we're actually going to talk about how I want you to come to the Pies. Now, at this point, Nick Riewoldt had no intentions of leaving St Kilda, and he never said, yeah, make me a pie. But what Eddie Maguire did was he pretty much got inside Nick Riewoldt's head. So he's like, yeah, look, this is what we're going to offer you. We can offer you a bit of a lucrative deal where it's, 3 or 4 years just straight up, because at the time, Nick Riewoldt is just getting 1-year contract extensions from the Saints, and that's how it would go until he would retire. And Eddie Maguire's like, look, we'll offer you 4 or something years. You can come to the Pies. You'll be playing to 70,000 people all the time. You could have a few premierships, right? And at this time, Collingwood's going so and so. We just started with Buckley. We're still trying to find our footing under Bucks as our sort of new coach. And Eddie is just going ham for Nick Riewoldt. So at the time with St Kilda, this is when they were cleaning out a bunch of older senior listed players. So Goddard goes to Essendon. Nick Del Santo's been traded. McAvoy was traded. Lenny Hayes' time was coming to an end. Jason Blake, Kaczynski, Milne, all these sort of guys, like the nucleus from 2009, 2010, they were starting to leave. And Nick Riewoldt had a couple of injuries, didn't want to be a burden on the Saints, wasn't getting treated the best by the Saints, and Eddie just sort of kind of got into his head, and he's like, yeah, maybe. And the funniest part about this story is Nick Riewoldt, after the 2013 grand final, after he's commentated the 2013 grand final, he's on a plane going to Texas. He's sitting at the runway, Tullamarine Airport, gets a text from Eddie Maguire, and he's like, I know you're about to fly, but have a look at this. And Eddie, according to Nick Riewoldt, sends him a whole text message saying how he'd be playing in Anzac Day. He'd be a triple premiership player. He would be a millionaire, more than he already is, I would assume. He'd be playing, to 80,000 at the G every single week. It'll be packed. It'll be huge. Your name will go down in folklore. And that was the last thing Nick Riewoldt read until his phone got shut off. And on a 14-hour flight to Texas, that's all he could think about. But in the end, we know how the story goes. Nick Riewoldt doesn't come to Collingwood, stays as a one-club player, goes down as one of St Kilda's greatest ever players. And it's sometimes nice when that sort of happens, when the loyalty is just there, and Nick stays a Sainer. Would have been amazing if he had come to Collingwood for a few years, but stays a Sainer and keeps that loyalty. Now, the most recent one that probably some of the younger audience remembers, I know I really remember this one, everyone's going to remember this, but is 2018 Tom Lynch. Now, Gold Coast captain at the time, we were right in the thick of it. It was us, Richmond obviously, and I think a little bit of Hawthorn as well. Now, you remember Ned Long was caught at Tom Lynch's house with Tom Lynch's manager at the time. And this is when, a couple of weeks before that, Bucks came out publicly and said, yeah, look, I've spoken to Tom Lynch, and, I'm not afraid to tell you guys that we want to go hard for these sort of players, and we want to win premierships. We want to go hard for these sort of players, and, everyone talks to everyone, so I'm telling you, yes, we have talked to Tom Lynch. There were rumours where, this sort of publicity from Nathan Buckley saying, yeah, we did talk to Lynch, when Lynch wasn't saying that he was talking to anyone, kind of made Lynch go a little bit into his shell and not want to come to the Pies because of that. But in the end, he chooses the Tigers. Apparently, he chose the Tigers because he just wanted to play side by side with Jack Riewoldt, who had won a couple of Copeland medals, and wanted to sort of, be the PIC, the partner in crime with Riewoldt. Goes on, wins a couple of premierships with the Tigers. But, Lynch is still playing at the moment. Yes, he's got a couple of injuries and niggles and stuff like that. But Lynch could have been, dare I say it, a linchpin to more premierships. Like all of these guys that are listed here, Lockett, Brown, Fev, Nick Riewoldt, Tom Lynch, they could have all been a part of Collingwood dynasties. And I have no doubt about it that we would be on more than 16 flags had we have gotten any of these guys. Now, over the years, Collingwood has tried to recruit and trade for and pick up unrestricted free agents for big full forwards. Anthony Rocker was traded to us from Sydney. Quinton Lynch was picked up as an unrestricted free agent. Jesse White we traded for. Nathan Kruger we traded for. But typically, we don't trade for a lot of full forwards. So that's why I feel like this sort of war chest that we have, Logan McDonald is the most perfect fit to our puzzle. Mason Cox is 33. Brody Mychek's 31. Dan McStay is 29. I'm pretty sure. Maybe he's not 29, but he is in his late 20s, and we don't have another key forward. Like, yes, okay, Nathan Kruger, but we don't have someone really young that can grow with this team. And we know, Jeff Brown, our president, Craig Kelly, they've all come out and said, Graham Wright, they've all come out and said that we don't want to go to the draft. We're just going to keep topping up because we're in the window, and we're going to do what Richmond did. We're going to do what Geelong did. Keep topping up with these players instead of developing them. Develop them from another club, bring them in, and compete again. So that's why I think we are going to give up a couple of future first round picks for Logan McDonald. And yes, we're going to have to overpay because that's just what Collingwood does. That's just what teams do when you need a big key forward from another team. You need to overpay, and that is just it. But I'd rather overpay with 2 first-round draft picks and get another 2 or 3 premierships with Logan McDonald in the team and Nick Dacos hitting him up week in, week out. But look, guys, I hope this video has just been a little bit informative. Out of all of those guys, who would have been your number 1 pick to come to the Pies? You can only pick one. Who would have been your number 1 pick? Lockett, Brown, Fev, Nick Rell, or Tom Lynch? Let me know in the comments down below. But until then, like, comment, subscribe, tell your family, tell your friends, tell your pets, and until next time, double checkers. I'll swoop you later.